What's up, guys? This is VinylicPuma, back with another Fallout video, and I'm sure pretty much everybody knows about Fallout Miami at this point. After all, it had a trailer that went viral, and there was a lot of positive buzz surrounding it. While a PC release for Fallout Miami is all but guaranteed in time, I'm sure there are many out there that would be interested in a console release. After all, who wouldn't want a massive new DLC for Fallout 4 that allows them to continue to play the game, but in a brand new setting? Especially when it's a setting that neither Bethesda or even Fallout's original creators, Black Isle Studios, ever explored. Heck, maybe people would even be willing to pay for an experience that's on the level of something like Fallout Miami or other similar projects like Fallout Cascadia or Lone Star, provided it was available through Bethesda's Creation Club. Now, this isn't necessarily an original topic, as I'm sure someone somewhere may have talked about this before. In fact, I've talked about something similar when I made a video talking about some reasons why Bethesda should consider remaking Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. It seems like a safe bet that if fans are trying to remake your old games, and there's a lot of positive press and interest around it, then you should probably at least look into remaking the game yourself, or maybe contract the mod team in question to remake your game for you. But I digress. I think that on some level, the rationale for Fallout 3 and New Vegas fan remakes also applies to many of the different total conversion mods that have come out for Bethesda's games as well. Whether that be Fallout 4 related projects like Fallout Miami, Fallout Cascadia, or Fallout Lone Star, or even Skyrim related projects like Enderal, Fallscar, and Beyond Skyrim, all of these projects are ambitious, amazing, and garner so much positive press amongst the greater Fallout and Elder Scrolls communities that it seems bizarre that Bethesda hasn't tried to emulate their success, or hire some of these teams to work on content for them through Creation Club. While it's true that we've already got some of the community's most talented modders working on certain creations for the Creation Club, the program in and of itself leaves a lot to be desired. Especially since a lot of the creations available are either really small, primarily cosmetic, are accomplished by free mods, or a combination of all three. Sure, I suppose PS4 and Xbox One users can benefit, as console users don't have access or have limited access to external assets, but wouldn't it be better if you could get larger, more substantial pieces of content rather than just small ones? Or perhaps more to the point, which would you rather have? A huge, high-quality DLC that's on par with something like Fallout Miami, or a new suit of power armor? If you ask me, the answer to that question is pretty obvious. Imagine for a moment if instead of Creation Club being implemented as it currently is, that it was instead a program designed to sell really large-scale mods on par with some of the projects that we've seen with Fallout 4, like Fallout Miami, Fallout Cascadia, and Fallout Lone Star. Not only would this have a far better value proposition to consumers, as expansions like Fallout Miami or Cascadia would be things people could potentially enjoy for hours upon hours, but it also might yield the release of console versions of these types of DLCs as well. As much as many of us on the PC hate to admit it, console users are a huge portion of the Fallout fanbase, and it's a shame that they will never have access to Fallout Miami or Cascadia in its entirety. And that's simply because you're limited to a certain amount of install base for mods in Xbox One, or you're limited to both limited install space and the ability to use external assets on the PS4 versions of the game. And to that end, Creation Club, or something like Creation Club, but with an emphasis on making larger expansions, would be the only thing that would allow something like Fallout Miami or Cascadia to come to console. However, let's talk about why this will likely never happen. The sad reality, or I suppose tragedy of the Creation Club, is that Bethesda's current implementation of the Creation Club is primarily focused around selling currency that's then used to purchase what are essentially the equivalent of what would normally be small mods. Now, it's important to point out that Bethesda doesn't necessarily make money off of the Creation Club content that's sold, but rather the Creation Club credits that you buy. Assuming that you purchase 3,000 Creation Club credits for $24.99, that's more than half the current going price of the Game of the Year edition on consoles. Or if you have been playing Fallout 4 for longer than that, and you originally bought Fallout 4's Season Pass before the price was hiked to $50, that's basically the cost of the Season Pass, which included worthy add-ons and expansions to the game like Far Harbor and Nuka World. While I can't definitively say how much it costs to make Far Harbor and Nuka World, I'd have to imagine that the costs to make a DLC like that would be significant. And just to throw a number out there, let's say a DLC like Far Harbor cost about $5 million or more to make, once everything ranging from employees to voice actors and other personnel are paid. However, through Creation Club, Bethesda can essentially outsource the development of small items to modders, pay them whatever they pay them, which I can guarantee is lower than that initial $5 million amount, and have a far higher profit margin as a result. Assuming that, say, just 5% of the people that bought Fallout 4 spent $24.99 on Creation Club credits, which pans out to about 723,000 people based on the total 14.47 million copies of Fallout 4 sold across all platforms, then Bethesda would have made about $18 million on Creation Club. At this point, why would Bethesda ever create a DLC that costs $5 million to make to only have said DLC make about $13 million or so when they can hire a team of modders to make small pieces of content at a fraction of the cost, and by extension, increase their bottom line? While this is definitely bad from a consumer perspective, from a business perspective, the choice here is obvious. You forgo the high cost of making large DLCs and sell Creation Club credits where you can pay modders far less than what it would cost to develop something truly satisfying and substantial to the fanbase. Even in a system where you paid a mod team, say $250,000 up front and then another $250,000 on completion to make this giant DLC for Fallout 4, Bethesda is likely making far more money by paying individual modders far less to create smaller pieces of content while potentially making as much or far more money than they would have otherwise. And with this in mind, the dream of ever getting an expansion on the level of something like Fallout Miami or Cascadia dies. With all of this said though, even if it's less profitable than microtransactions, I think Bethesda's Creation Club should strive for and aspire to things like Fallout Miami or Cascadia. These are things that people seem to want from Bethesda, and I think if Bethesda decided to release something that was on the level of something like a Fallout Miami or like a Fallout Cascadia, it would likely be very successful and popular with the community. I also think, and this doesn't necessarily apply to Bethesda, but I have to wonder how sustainable games supported by microtransactions are going to be long-term. Right now, microtransactions in AAA games are somewhat new, and while some games have managed to implement them successfully, like GTA Online or Fortnite, there have also been too many notable high-profile controversies involving their implementation. Consumers of AAA titles are slowly but surely becoming more disenfranchised with microtransactions, as seen with the whole Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle. Not to mention that the push to make multiplayer titles just to sell these microtransactions is also becoming unpopular, as seen with Middle-earth: Shadow of War. While I suppose this doesn't necessarily apply to Fallout 4's Creation Club, as the microtransactions don't really interfere with the game, I could foresee Creation Club's current implementation negatively affecting future Bethesda titles. Let's say Starfield has a Creation Club like Fallout 4, and rather than having a Season Pass where they release DLC, Bethesda opts to just sell items through the Creation Club instead. At that point, Bethesda doesn't have to pool resources into making additional story content or new in-game items, and instead they can just outsource the creation of mini DLCs to modders and end up making far more money than they would have otherwise. While this would probably be good for Bethesda's bottom line, I do foresee it potentially crippling a major aspect of why people play Bethesda's games, and that is for the story and lore. As it pertains to Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, some of the DLC expansions are arguably what saved some of those games. Fallout 3's original ending was so hated, and it took the Broken Steel DLC to include a worthy expansion and more satisfying ending. As for Fallout 4, it's generally agreed that Far Harbor is often considered to be the highlight of that game, and is possibly even better than the main game's story. To lose potential story expansions to Creation Club microtransactions would be a mistake in my humble opinion, and I hope that Bethesda doesn't go down that route. And who knows, maybe they won't, and Starfield will be more like a traditional Bethesda-style RPG that we're all used to, and we get a season pass and DLC and all that. As far as Fallout Miami is concerned, though, it's honestly a shame that it will never come to consoles, and I think it's also a shame that we'll never likely see mod team projects like Fallout Miami get supported by Bethesda through Creation Club or some other similar service, because they can just make a lot more money hiring just one or two modders to make one item. Ultimately, I think what Fallout Miami proves is that many of us out there would like a lot more Fallout, and it's kind of a shame that we aren't getting those kinds of story expansions from Bethesda. Maybe things will change and Bethesda will prove us all wrong someday, and then suddenly we end up getting these sort of things, but I guess until that happens, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting the channel, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.